Hi, this is Dr. Joe Luciani. I'm a clinical psychologist, and I am also a consultant for Self Studios Learning. And I'd like to talk to you a little bit today about this transitional period we refer to as pre-adolescence. And if ever you read Dante's Inferno, there's a sign, an inscription over the portals of hell, and it reads, "Abandon all hope, ye who enter here." And I'm sure at times you will be feeling this hopelessness of who is this kid? Who is this child I brought up? And it's not unusual. In fact, it is normal that as your child starts to progress into pre-adolescence and then adolescence, there is something very, very important going on fundamentally, aside from the physical and the hormonal. There's a psychological separation that really needs to take place. Margaret Mahler wrote a paper once called Separation Individuation. And essentially what that means is that for that child to transition into a successful, independent adult, there needs to be an adequate separation from the world of childhood, from the world of dependency. And this is the beginning of that process of separation. And so you feel sometimes that you become a kind of second-class citizen compared to your child's friends and peers. And it's because basically they are trying on some level to establish an identity separate from you, separate from the child. And it is a truly tumultuous time. I mean, there is so much going on, just physically, chemically, hormonally, and psychologically, that this is a time of just bump after bump after bump. Now, one of the things you need to really understand as a parent is that you're going to experience this as a loss of control. And this is because the child you knew, that obedient child who would always do exactly what was told her most of the time, that child is really no longer around. Occasionally, you'll see glimpses of that. But essentially, what you're witnessing is that the child now that is transitioning is really trying to establish their own boundaries. They're trying to establish and really push those boundaries out into the world beyond you. And it's very disconcerting for a lot of parents. But once you understand that the issue is not trying to control or maintain the type of control you once had, the real issue is to realize that controlling, in a sense, to the pre-adolescent is a relative term. Yes, you have control, but it's the foundational control that you established up until this time, that the now rather delicate house of cards of pre-adolescence, adolescence resides. And as tumultuous as these times are, remember that it is the foundation that you have provided and continue to provide that really establish the stability and the resiliency of your child as they go through the slings and arrows of peer pressure and the media that attacks and provokes and also stimulates and educates. But there are many forces, many factors that play into the confusion of this age. The frontal lobes, the area of judgment and really being able to make appropriate decisions. That's really not really going to be intact until the mid-20s. So this is a time where judgment needs to be questioned. And as parents, we need to be involved. We can't just hand over the steering wheel, literally or figuratively, and assume that just because so-and-so child is a good child, that they will always make the right decisions. They won't. They don't have the capacity for that, not yet. They need us. They need us as parents to set those boundaries, to be there as models. It's very important, especially during this age, that your child sees you as you want them to become. You want to let your child see you as level-headed, as emotionally being able to handle life in a more kind of practical way with resilience and tenacity. You want to represent, to them the steadfast anchor that has always been their life. You want to establish rules and a sense of order because this is a time of chaos. And it is also a time where there's a deep-seated inferiority that comes with finding out who and what we are as children. So your child is really not looking toward you for that instruction, but relying on you to be there to offer it as a backdrop, as a stabilizing backdrop to the confusion and chaos they feel. Now, you're going to feel that as a loss of control because, essentially you've always had the upper hand. You've been able to establish black and white rules. You've been able to tell what has to be done and when and what time is bedtime and what to eat. So these are times where you need to become more flexible and you need to realize that you need to speak more, talk more. Family time, one of the best things you can do is to establish mealtime where the family can get together and talk. And it's important to not talk down that slope as you once did, but to realize the emerging pre-adult in your child and to engage them in a way that they feel satisfied and feel that they too are seen in a way that makes them feel that they are moving forward into a more responsible lifestyle. Give them commands, give them orders, but give them in a way that incorporates their feedback. Hear what they have to tell you. Hear what they tell you in terms of what they need from you. And, before you become hyper-reactive or overreactive, digest first, be the voice of moderation, and don't be hyper-reactive yourself. So if your child comes home with some ludicrous notion of what they need to be doing in life, digest it, talk to them, maybe let the dust settle if it's something really tumultuous. Come back at a later time. Come back at a time when there's more stability and groundedness, and represent that for your child. Your child still needs you. And you need to relinquish some of that control if there's not going to be war at home. And you do that in a way that protects them, but doesn't try to compartmentalize them into an earlier mold of I'm the parent and you're the child, and you do it because I tell you to do it. No, this is a time where you want to negotiate, where you want to start bringing in dialogue, and you want to discuss issues. And you want to go on and on with this, not just during pre-adolescence, but into adolescence. Because the more the child starts to rely on peers and peer pressure, the less it is that they're going to see you as the authority, the ultimate authority in their lives. I remember when I was a kid, I felt I knew all the answers. Now I'm grown up. I know I don't even know the questions. But you see, that's the arrogance of this transitional stage. They really think they know it all. And oftentimes this is what causes a crash, because you have to almost believe you know it all to protect you from the insecurities and the uncertainties that you face as a transitional preteen. So a lot of what goes on during the preteen years is to actually protect them from their own chaos. Try to see it through that lens. When your child comes home and defies you, ask yourself, what is the reason behind that? And oftentimes you'll see that they're trying to assert themselves in a way that they feel some dominance, some sense of just being able to control and manipulate their own lives. So be reactive, but in a more or less just compassionate sense. Try to help the child articulate. I call it kind of modeling for them. Be the model that they need to have. You might even always try just putting yourself in their shoes and say things like, when I was your age, I remember having that same confusion. And I remember when so-and-so didn't want to be my friend, and I felt so crushed, and I didn't know what to do for the longest time. And then as time went on, I learned that that person's friendship was really not of value. So the thing is, you want to instruct, but you want to do it in a way that disables the old talking down parent dynamic. So the child wants to feel that they are emerging now into a sphere at home and at school where they have some independence. It's a gradual process. It will continue for years to come. And what's important for you is to realize this is a time to buckle your seatbelt. There will be ups and downs, But in order to get through it, you need to always keep coming back to center. And that's what home needs to be. Home needs to be the centering process. Have those meals every night. Have order, have discipline in the sense where you have predictability at home. And always, always, always try to engage in conversation. And when you get that, nothing to talk about, no, nothing happened today, again, be compassionate and say, okay, maybe we can talk about something that we're going to do as a family, but always try to engage and maybe come around in a circuitous way. Try to get dialogue to happen and do it not in a forced feeding way. The more you do it, the more you approach your child in a relaxed way, the more inviting that becomes for them. They still depend on you, whether you feel it or not. You are the anchor, you are the foundation. And remember that house of cards is very fragile. And this is a very, very fragile time period. So what you offer, the solace that you offer, the orderliness that your home needs to be, the routines that need to be there, the structure that needs to be there, that is tonic for a child going through this transition. So you are the tonic. And let's just all go through this period. I've been through it. So I've survived. My two children are now adults and thriving, and all those bumps are long since forgotten. We all get through this, and you will too. There is always, always, always a way. If you can't go in the front door, there's a side door. If you can't get in the side door, there's a back door. There's a window. There's always a way to reach your child. So with all sincerity, I wish you the absolute best. I wish you your own resilience and tenacity. And again, hang in there, because this is a normal and healthy process, and you're part of that process, and you have to evolve along with it. If you refuse to evolve, it's not going to be good. Evolve, transition yourself, and go along with that transition and start watching this wonderful adult beginning to emerge. Thank you very much.